it's one of those things where it's like if you want out, then get out. We don't need you here anymore. They're trying to do a rebuild. He's already come on press conferences and said, I don't want to be a part of a rebuild. And don't be a part of a rebuild. I mean, go somewhere else. I mean, you're getting older in your career. I mean, what is he, 28, 29, I think? He's approaching his 30s. He's getting into the sunset years of his his NFL career. Go somewhere else. Go see if you can win, with another organization. But if you don't want to be a part of it, you don't have to be a part of it. The biggest quandary there is they just gave him a lot of money to stay here. And he was all bought in at the early part of the season. You would hear him on press conferences about this is my daughter Aubrielle. And you would hear him, I'm a team guy, I want to be here, I love Houston, yada yada, and now he's like, you know what, this is a joke, and he's not wrong. I mean, the organization they've done a terrible job over the last 3 years, so it's rebuild mode. It just is what it is. I mean, it happens to every franchise ever, all the time. Every year there's that one franchise, and unfortunate for Texans fans right now, it's the Houston Texans. It's just rebuild mode. It's time to strip everything down to the bare bone and start over. And if Brandon Cooks doesn't want to be a part of that, then that's fine. Go. I never thought he's not a top wide receiver. He is a excellent slot receiver, and he's kind of losing some of that because he's lost a step. He really has. If you watch him on the field, he's not as quick and shifty as he used to be. His route running skills have kind of tapered off a little bit. I mean, he's still an excellent, tool in your back pocket to have for, any other NFL team. But I just don't think that, it's worth the hassle and the headache of keeping him around. If he's just going to ruin the locker room, then get him out of there, whatever. Great news to hear about John Mechie. He's recovering. He got the cancer diagnosis. It seemed like right after the draft. Like, it seemed like everyone was all excited. We got John Mechie, receiver from Alabama, and I was watching his draft tape, and it was just, yes, this is what we needed. Alongside maybe Nico Collins. We didn't really know what we had with Nico Collins yet, and then he gets a cancer diagnosis, and you're just like, man, like, could anything else? And all good, thoughts and prayers out to the Mechie family for that. It sounds like he's recovering fine. He's doing well, and from everything I've heard from the coaching staff, he's on track to be back next year. So, and in training camp, whenever training camp starts, so that's good. So we got, you got Mechie hanging in the wing. We don't really know what he's going to be yet because he hasn't taken an NFL snap yet. And, he hasn't even been in training camp yet. He's been in recovery. And then you have Nico Collins, who he's a big-bodied receiver that I was really excited about. I really was whenever the Texans drafted him. I was actually I was watching that draft, and I was really, and Texans fans might light me up for this. Colts fans might be like, hey, man, you might have had it right, but Sam Ehlinger was there whenever they drafted Nico Collins. And I'm telling you right now, if we had Sam Ehlinger versus Davis Mills over the last 2 years, we might be having a completely different conversation right now. Like, if you were to just can you imagine if the Colts were to just given Sam Ehlinger, and the Colts have their own problems, I know that. It's not just at quarterback. We all know that. Matt Ryan came in and did an awful job. And I don't know if that was coaching, whatever the case may be, but maybe Pep Hamilton could have done something different with Sam Ehlinger. Maybe David Culley could have done something different with Sam Ehlinger. Who knows? I mean, I was really hoping that whenever they made that Nico Collins pick, that they would have just picked Sam Ehlinger. And maybe it wasn't that exact pick, because I think there was a first-round pick. Yeah, maybe not even the pick. I just wanted him to draft Sam Ehlinger, because he was there. I remember there was a pick that came up, and I can't remember if it was a second or third. I don't even remember where Sam Ehlinger went, but he's shown some promise. Like, when he's had to come in for the Colts, and of course, I'm a Longhorns fan, so I watched him in Texas, but it's one of those intriguing things. You just kind of like, what if? Kind of the same thing with like Vince Young. Like if the Texans had drafted Vince Young, everybody talks about that all the time. Same thing. That's just a Texas fan being a Longhorns fan. Moving off a wide receiver, we'll flip over to the defense real quick. So defense, huge improvement. I think that there is a major people at the door right now. I think that there is a major shift from what we were looking at in 2021 versus what you're looking at in 2022. I don't think that the Texans need to address defense super early in the draft, and I'm going to go over those stats, pretty extensively. I think that the Houston Texans' biggest concern for the 2023 draft is going to need to be offense. And I also am really, really hoping that Nick Caserio is watching a lot of these wide receivers and tight ends, and trying to figure out weapons that he's going to be able to give this whoever quarterback may be in the 2023 season. Because if you run a first-round draft pick quarterback out there with the current Texans roster, you are basically doing what you did to Lovie Smith and setting them up for failure. They are not going to be good whatsoever. They are going to struggle. They're probably going to be questioning their entire lives, football careers up to that point, because it was just such a crap show to watch. That be an excuse for an NFL passing game. Like it was terrible. None of it made sense. I mean, and this is where I have a problem with Pep Hamilton. There were so many situations where they would just run first down, second down, gain a yard, 2nd and 9, gain 2 yards on the run, 3rd and 7. Throw the ball to a hitch down because Davis Mills got scared because there was a rush in his face. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, have some kind of creativity. And they did that. They actually did that too late in the damn season when they trotted Jeff Driscoll out there to run the freaking Wildcat. And that's something to venture into. I don't know. The Saints did it with Taysom Hill, and it had some success. Excuse me. I don't think that's a good foundation to build an offense on. Let's see what happens. You can't scheme things that way. You can't plan for defenses that way. You can't build a foundation of an offense that way. That's just not how the NFL works. I mean, it's cool to watch sometimes. Sometimes it works out for a big play, but from a fundamental standpoint, it's a train wreck. I mean, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I would rather go out there and try and figure out a better. And I'm not an NFL coach. I'm not a coach, period. But I mean, good God, just from watching it on the TV, you're like, this is painful to watch. The Houston Texans last season, as far as the offense goes, I'm trying to pull these numbers up. And kind of give you guys a better idea. I was looking at this earlier, and I was like, man, they actually improved on defense. Like they did. They really weren't as bad as I thought they were. Okay. So overall offense, 32nd. I mean, okay. Special teams, they were tied for 4th. So there you go. Something to hang your hat on. Great job, Frank Ross. And again, I think Frank Ross did a great job with the special teams this year, but that's just not what we're looking for. Trying to build a franchise, like we need Okay, so 32nd and 31st. I was looking at a stat earlier, though, that showed a substantial amount of improvement on the defense, and the offense just went stagnant. Like, it was worse than 2021, if you can even imagine that. Which, it's not like it's a huge basis of comparison. 2021 was a laugh. 2022 was even more of a laugh, and here we are in this situation now. So I think the biggest thing they need to worry about is where are we going with head coach, and are we going to clean house when that head coach comes in? So say it's D'Amico Ryans. He didn't want any more of the defensive coordinators there. He wants his own people. Cool. If I'm Nick Caserio, I'm saying, look, I am giving you the keys to the city. You know what I mean? Outside of scouting, drafting, obviously they're going to have to corroborate those types of things. I mean, clearly I want the head coach involved in the drafting. I'm just saying, let Nick Caserio handle the behind-the-scenes stuff. As far as schematically on the field, is it D'Amico Ryans? Is it Jonathan Gannon? Is it whoever it is, Mike Kafka? I don't care. Are we going to just be like, here's the keys to the city. If you want a whole new squad, you want to get rid of all the coordinators, have at it. I feel like that's going to be a huge process, and I don't really think that's what the Texans are going to do. I honestly feel like Pep Hamilton will still be the offensive coordinator next year. I don't think they're going to do that. But we've seen crazier things happen. Once a head coach gets hired, maybe they do clean house. It just. And I feel like that's probably what Sean Payton's wanting to do. I also feel like he doesn't really want a GM in his ear. And I feel like Nick Caserio is that guy that Nick Caserio is going to be in your ear. I mean, what was it, the first season with David Culley? Nick Caserio was on the headset on the sidelines, telling David Culley stuff. And I don't want that as a GM, as a fan, just as an analyst. I don't think that's conducive to a productive team. Your general manager is supposed to be handling the behind-the-scenes stuff. He's supposed to be handling, culture stuff and free agency, drafting, player development, scouting, all that. That's your job. You're supposed to be overseeing that. The schematic part of football needs to be handled by the head coach. It does not need to be handled by the general manager. We saw that with Bill O'Brien. He tried to do both. It was awful. No need for that whatsoever. So whoever the head coach comes in, whatever candidate they decide to land on, the first question is going to be, what are they doing with the staff? And if they're not going to make any moves and they keep everybody as is, cool, okay. Next question, what are we doing with the draft? I've been watching a lot of tape on Bryce Young, and I'm getting a little worried that I didn't see enough of him, that there was a lot of Bryce Young that anybody can attest to this, that just blew you away and made you go, this guy's a playmaker. And I may be the only one that even wants to make this comparison, especially as a Texans fan. And it feels like saying the name that shall not be named, in Harry Potter. But he reminds me a lot of Deshaun Watson. He really does. Just his way to extend plays is prolific. He is a play extender. And the only thing that worries me about that is that's really tough to coach. And I really feel like those years with Bill O'Brien, I feel like him and Deshaun struggled so much with that. And I feel like we saw it in the 2020 season when they just couldn't win a game. Like it wasn't like they did have a terrible roster. I mean, outside of Deshaun Watson and a handful of other guys, I mean, they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, which was so stupid. They brought in this new running back, and I feel like him and Bill O'Brien just had a struggle of Deshaun Watson wanted to play hero ball, all of the 2020 season and move all over the field and try to figure stuff out. And I feel like that's the type of player that Bryce Young is. And I haven't gotten any confirmation or any type of tape or quotes from Nick Saban saying that about Bryce Young. And that may not be the case, but watching tape, if you watch tape on this guy, he looks really damn similar to Deshaun Watson. And I know Texans fans don't want to hear that. And again, I may be the only one that has this take. Maybe you other guys, maybe you think I'm crazy, maybe you think I'm stupid, maybe you think I'm being asinine about it. Is what it is. That's what these shows are for. I'm just giving my opinion. He's a play extender. He is very good at manipulating the pocket. If you watch his footwork and what he does to especially the bigger defenders, like those edge rushers, when he gets outside of the pocket, he will do just like a little two-step turn and completely spin them around. It's so crazy to watch, like how these big burly guys just barreling towards him. I love the alliteration there, by the way. They'll just completely. It looks like Bugs Bunny, up against, or like the Roadrunner up against, Wile E. Coyote back in the Looney Tunes cartoons. It's just so funny to watch him just completely turn these guys on a dime and be like, oh no, I'm going this way. And I just completed that pass for 45 yards. It's okay. You all right? You want me to help you up? It's stupid. But he reminds me a lot of Deshaun Watson. And maybe that's not a bad thing. I mean, Texans had some great seasons with Deshaun Watson. They made it to a divisional round and nearly made it to an AFC championship with him. So, I mean, maybe it ends up being a good thing. Maybe it's a good formula for the Texans. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like for Pep Hamilton because he's not really, used to coaching that kind of quarterback. And Davis Mills sure as hell isn't that kind of quarterback. So I don't really know how that fits in. That's the only thing I'm concerned about with Bryce Young is I don't really know how he fits in with the team and the direction that Pep Hamilton's trying to run this offense. I think he's looking for more of a pocket passer, and I think that's why they're going to go C.J. Stroud if they have that option. It doesn't seem like the Bears are going to pick a quarterback. If they do, I think everybody in the nation will be shocked about it. I think they're going to go a defensive player, probably Jalen Carter, who was a beast, and who could blame him for picking him? They need help on defense. They need help in a lot of facets, but I think they're sticking with Justin Fields. I don't feel like they're gonna do anything at quarterback. And then you have the whole Will Levis conversation. Will Levis is a prototypical quarterback coming out of the draft. That's the best way I can possibly word that. Is he is a prototypical quarterback coming out of the draft. A lot of people have compared him to Josh Allen. A lot of people compared him to Ben Roethlisberger. He's just a big-bodied guy that can just dart the ball wherever he needs to, and that's great. I am not going to be disappointed with any three of those quarterbacks. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis. Wouldn't be disappointed with any three of them. I think with the right coaching, this is the only thing that worries me. Are they going to be set up for failure? Are they going to be put in the wrong system? And that's all going to fall on Pep Hamilton's shoulders and whoever the new head coach, of the Texans would be. And I don't really feel like it's going to be a head coach. I feel like Nick Caserio's already got his mind made up. I really do. And maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Maybe he's still doing film on it. I feel like he already has his mind made up, and I feel like he's leaning C.J. Stroud. And if C.J. Stroud can show me what he showed in that Georgia game, which, by the way, Ohio State, I feel for them. They should have won that game. They beat them, and it just came down to the last. There was just too much time left, and it was like, God. But I feel like that's where Nick Caserio is leaning, is towards C.J. Stroud. I don't have a problem with it. I think Bryce Young has more flash and flair to him, more like a Deshaun Watson, and that's why I make that comparison. I think C.J. Stroud is a little more of a it's tough to come up with a comparison for C.J. Stroud because he really is, if you watch the tape on him, he's just such a pocket passer, and he can run when he needs to. That's what's so mind-blowing, is that he doesn't use that aspect of his game, and a lot of it is, you got to look at who was at Ohio State, throughout his career. He had, NFL talent wide receivers at his disposal every single year he was there. So it's like, I mean, you could say the same thing about Bryce Young, but it's just a different body type too, and a different, mindset. I just, and Ohio State's whole offense was always great every year he was there. So it's like, it's one of those things that I feel like no matter what three candidates they go with there in the draft, I feel like it's going to come down to development and who do we have coaching these guys? Who do we have bringing them up into this level? That's what it's going to come down to. All right, we're going to press forward a little bit. So we get to talking about the defense a little bit. Really quick. Jordan Akins, like where the hell did that guy come from? I think Jordan Akins will be back next year, and I think that Jordan Akins will be the starting tight end next year. I don't know what's going on with Brevin Jordan. That guy's hurt way too much, and he's also just, when he's on the field, it seems like he's just non-existent. Wasted draft pick. He'll disappear off into the distance at some point. I'm already confident of that. But Jordan Akins, I feel like, will be the tight end. The other aspect of this to look at before we go into defense, the Texans, like I said, have $40+ million in cap space, which is, I'm going to take a drink of beer real quick. Making the show at night, so I mean a couple of beers while I'm doing it. I feel like the Texans have a really, really opportunistic gap right here where there's really not a whole lot of teams with a lot of money right now. And there's a lot of sexy free agents out there right now, namely a quarterback. And I hate to go down that road and start that whole debacle, but there's been some rumors that Derek Carr, I don't want him. No Texan fan wants him. The Carr name is cursed. Sorry, David. It's great that you are first, starting quarterback, first out of the draft, yada, yada. It was awful. It was terrible. And David is not even really that great of an analyst. I don't even like watching him whenever he analyzes stuff. And, I'm not either. I'm just starting out, so who am I to be a critic? But no Texan fan wants that. I don't feel like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or Lamar Jackson even, and the whole Lamar Jackson thing, I feel like he'll end up back in Baltimore. They'll get that figured out. Even if they have to franchise tag him, that's a lot of money to pay to him. But what else are you going to do in Baltimore? I mean, Lamar he's the whole system. He is everything to that Baltimore. And we saw what happened in the playoffs without him. It's just you can't let that guy go. So I feel like he'll be back there. Aaron, I don't know. Tom is who the fuck knows. And I don't want any of those guys. If we're going to do a rebuild, let's start fresh. Okay, give me a rookie quarterback. I'm fine with that. Not a Davis Mills, not a 6th round draft. When did we get Davis Mills? 4th, 5th round, 6th round? I can't even remember now. Not a late round draft pick. I want a top perennial, huge quarterback coming out of the draft. That's what I want. I don't want Davis Mills. No one wants Davis Mills. And I don't feel like that's what the Texans are going to do. They're not that stupid. Nick Caserio is not that dumb. He's done a great job in the last 2 drafts he's had. The whole Nico Collins thing, yeah, we'll dive into that more. But I feel like if we don't address some of the outlying positions, quarterback is what it is, we'll probably draft one. Defensive line needs help. Jonathan, what the hell happened to Jonathan Grenard? This was a guy I was looking to be possibly a defensive team captain this year, and then Jerry Hughes comes in, 32-year-old guy, or 30, I don't even know how old that guy is. He's well into his playing career at this point, comes in and is defensive captain, along with, Christian Kirksey. And Kirksey's solid. By the way, Christian Harris had a hell of a campaign once he actually started playing. Harris and Petrie, I'm super excited about. But Jerry Hughes comes in, and pretty much just takes Jonathan Grenard's job from him. Like, just says, hey, man, you're not doing really great at this, and the coaches are kind of wanting me to come in and do this for you. So can you go sit on the sideline for a little bit, and I'm going to go handle this? I mean, that's basically what Jerry Hughes did. Like, just took over the defense, or the defensive line at least. And that's freaking concerning. I mean, the guy's, ending his playing career almost. I don't even know if, we haven't heard anything, but I don't even know if he'll be back next year. He's getting towards the sunset years of his career. And Jonathan Grenard's just sitting there going, I don't know what just happened, So it's like, defensive line needs to be addressed, I think, in the first 3 picks. I'm really, really pushing for offense on those first 2 picks. In my ideal world, this is really what I would want. Second overall pick, Bryce Young. Take him. He's flashy. He's the guy. They're talking about how he wants to beef up a little bit. The biggest concern with Bryce Young is his size, obviously, but also his the way he extends plays, and that there's a lot of times on film I'd watch him, and there wasn't really any need for him to extend the play. And what does that look like translating into the NFL? Well, the guy played in the SEC. And if you watch him against Georgia, especially in 2021, he ripped those guys apart. Like, it was just silly to watch. Like, he knows what he's doing, but at the same time, like, how much of that is Nick Saban? I don't know. I think Bryce Young would be the best pick. C.J. Stroud is a close second, and then Will Levis. If they end up with Will Levis, it is what it is. I have way more confidence in Will Levis than I do Davis freaking Mills. So wherever you go there, Bryce Young would be my pick. 12th pick, Quentin Johnston. And any of you Big 12 Texas football watching guys, you know who this guy is. He looks, when I was watching those games, and obviously he played against Texas, so I was watching that game. I'm a Longhorns fan. If you watch his tape, even in his early years in college, he is such a big bot. Like, you guys, the Texans fans, remember Andre Johnson? When he could just grab the ball, you just had to throw it in this little perimeter around him. And DeAndre Hopkins had the same type of qualities. You just throw it anywhere in his vicinity, and he will figure out how to catch that ball. And not only that, he gets yak. He will run after that ball. He'll knock dudes over after he catches that ball. He's 6'4", 220. He's huge for a wide receiver. That is what I want for a number 1 wide receiver. I thought it was maybe going to be Nico Collins. He's not looking like it's going to work out. Brandon Cooks is too damn small to be a number 1 wide receiver. I'm sorry. He is a great slot wide receiver, and he may work out. Hell, if you guys want to keep him and have get Quentin Johnston and then Nico Collins and then Brandon Cooks and then Jordan Akins, we'll run with that. I'm not super thrilled about it. I'd really rather have someone other than Nico, even other than Brandon. And then you got Mechie thrown into the equation too. You put Mechie out there instead of Nico. Cool with that. But you get Quentin Johnston out there as your number 1 wideout with Bryce Young throwing him the ball. And I hate to make this comparison again, but it's DeAndre and Deshaun all over again. And minus all the scandal and the horse crap, and when we're just strictly looking at football play, we know what happened with DeAndre. He should have never left. He should have never been traded for that. That was Bill O'Brien's fuck up. And Texans fans will hate him forever for it, and they still do. And we know. You go away from the behind-the-scenes stuff. What the Texans had going for them in the late 2010s was they had 2 dynamic offensive players that were just on the same page and could make amazing plays. And that's what you need in the NFL alongside a great foundation. you're going to have to grow the foundation around them. It's not just going to be them out there just making flashy plays. I get that. I hear you there. I understand. But when you have that, element of the game to overcome sometimes some of those fundamental downfalls, you're set. That's it. That's what you need, because that gets you over the hump. And then you can start working more and more on those fundamentals, and then you can start building stuff in that, plays alongside of those great traits that those players have. That's where I'm at. I think it needs to be 2 Bryce Young, 3 Quentin Johnston, first round set. I'm a happy customer, and I think all Texans fans are too. The second round, I feel like they're going to really have to address defensive line. And then they have 2 third-rounders. So, I mean, there's so much draft capital that Nick Caserio, he's going to have a really hard time fucking this up. And if he does, this may be his last year. And it's sad to say, because I think he's a super smart guy. I have every bit of faith in Nick Caserio. Like I said, the first 2 head coaching hires he made and the way the last 2 years have gone, I really don't think that was a lot of his choice or his even doing. I mean, it was, but it wasn't, in my opinion. Like, it was almost like we don't have anybody else type of deal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it was his grand scheme to go Lovie Smith, the old dusty guy that's been sitting on the shelf since the mid-2000s of the Bears years, and Davis Mills, who hardly even played college football and is a super smart guy that's very soft-spoken, are going to lead this team. Like, Nick Caserio is too smart of a guy to be like, yes, this is it. You know what I mean? So this is going to be the year where it's like, all right, what's really going on inside that brain, and what exactly are you trying to build that's going to make sense for the next 4 or 5 years? Because, you're going to have a rollover period too, where you're going to have, some of these, hopefully they get, I really need to see some kind of a big free agency signing this offseason too, to make them seem like a legitimate contender for anything. And I think a lot of Texans fans are just kind of embrace the suck right now, which is, it's sad, but it's what it is. All right, we rambled on for, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half about Texans so far. Going to dive in really quick to the Houston Astros. They hired VP of player development and scouting, I think is what he was, at the Atlanta Braves, Dana Brown, who is actually going to be the first black general manager in the MLB, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And, they have one of the very few black managers in Dusty Baker already. So it's just it's weird to think in this day and age that's actually a thing. But anyways, not to get into the race aspect of it, Dana Brown is a hell of a good hire. I was super stoked when I heard about this. He's done a lot of player development. He actually brought in, I think, the rookie of the year this year for the Braves, Harris. He's done a lot of great things with the Atlanta Braves. He's bounced around the league for a while, has a lot of good different bullet points on his resume, so I was super stoked to hear about that. It's so funny that, so everybody's talking about, like, why didn't they just hire Jeff Bagwell as the general manager? Jeff Bagwell doesn't want to be the general manager of the Houston Astros. He doesn't have time for that shit. He's retired. The last thing he wants to do, and if any of you don't know what goes into being a general man, or even management in general, I mean, I worked in that field for nearly a decade. It is super time consuming and super intensive. There's a lot that goes into management, and if you don't have to do it, don't do it. It's not, I mean, unless you're just one of those guys or girls that just loves teaching people and loves developing, have at it. But if you don't have to, and shout out to my mom. My mom's an English teacher. She has been for over 2 decades. But I just don't, it's not me. It's not what I would want to do. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of headaches, and it's a lot of dealing with a lot of different personalities and people, and Jeff Bagwell does not want to do that. So to answer everybody's questions out there, and from what I've heard all around, everybody was kind of throwing that name out, or even Brad Ausmus, I think I had heard at one point, which Brad Ausmus has no credentials to be doing that job. Not a good hire. Dana Brown was a great hire. Dana Brown, I think every Astros fan super stoked about that. I guess that's kind of the rundown so far. Really quick, and I'll go over Texas basketball plays Tennessee. Former head coach of the Texas Longhorns, Rick Barnes' team, on Saturday. That game will be on ESPN. Number 4 versus number 10. Both teams 17-3. This could be maybe a glimpse into a couple of teams that could possibly make it to the Final Four. I mean, these are two really good basketball teams. Texas basketball playing really, really well right now. Marcus Carr has been playing out of his mind. We'll dive into that game on Saturday whenever it comes across. It's kind of something I'm going to do. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about over these next, probably a few days or so is going to be geared towards the Texans. Rockets, there's just not a whole lot to post about. The Astros, the signing of Dana Brown's been the biggest thing to come across the news, other than Justin Verlander leaving, but that's not a whole lot there. We kind of knew that was coming. And then the Texas Longhorns football is, it's over right now. So not a whole lot to report on in January, other than, everybody loves the NFL, man. There's always stories out there. Again, you guys want to like, subscribe. I'm just starting out doing this. My name is Jonny Lambert. I will be here daily from 7 to 9. Might shorten the broadcast a little bit because I know it's a lot to take in, but I'm also trying to cover a lot. If you guys have any recommendations, comments, or anything, put them down in the comments. I will try to respond to everybody. Thank you guys so much, and I will see y'all tomorrow.